Greetings and good vibes, y'all. Welcome back to the Leon Block. Tonight, there's some information that has been brought to my attention. Excuse me while I drop some links into the comments for y'all so that y'all have references to go off of and follow along with here. And then I have some videos for you. But I'm just saying, like, while there's always something going on that we're distracted by, there always seems to be something else going on behind the scenes that we're not necessarily privy to, you feel me? And I knew it. I knew it was something. I knew it was something. You know what I mean? So we'll be right back after this break and I'll show you all what's going on.
Don't talk to us about looting. Y'all are the looters. America has looted black people. America looted the Native Americans when...
Prayed and I'm like, God, no matter what it is, give me they don't want us to succeed.
Black Lives Matter all day, every day.
All day, every day.
That what goes on internationally will circle around. But let me tell you what's going on. All you my woke people, tell me how woke you are. And I ain't heard none of y'all say nothing about the meeting that is happening in Geneva, Switzerland, May the 22nd, 22 through May the 28th, 22. Oh, don't nobody know about that meeting? Let me go ahead and give you the backlog on it. At this meeting, 193 countries that are considered sovereign states under the United Nations are represented at this meeting, and they will be there, you all. Biden has brought along 40 countries with him that have decided that they will give our sovereignty, our human sovereignty, to the World Health Organization, whose legislative body is the World Health Assembly. Oh, y'all think I'm talking in riddles? Okay, let me break it down to you. If they approve this, May the 22nd through May the 28th, if Biden is successful with giving the World Health Organization our sovereignty, that means we no longer have control over our health. What does that mean, E? I'm not talking about no Medicaid, Medicare, how much that shit costs. What I'm talking about is saying, hey, there's a COVID-19 virus out here. Everybody go get a vaccine, and you have to get that vaccine. What I'm talking about is what happened in Shanghai. The World Health Organization will be able to declare in over 193 countries at one time, which means they can say 76 of these countries need to be shut down and put on lockdown right now. Do you know there is no overturn? There is no legislative body that you go through after this. Once they make this decision, you all, our sovereign rights as humans are taken. Do you know that nothing like this has ever been done throughout history? That it is considered unprecedented, unorthodox, and a whole bunch of other shit. Y'all want to talk about the wrong. You are being distracted. Where are your legislators? They know about this meeting, you all. They know about this meeting. Go look it up. And you may not be able to find it on Google. Look it up in other avenues. Call your legislators and you ask them about the meeting that is happening in Geneva, Switzerland, May the 22nd through May the 28th, in which Biden has already submitted amendments to provide our sovereign rights. We will no longer govern our own health, you all. We will no longer govern our own fucking world. You think you're going to be able to elect a leader? Elect them. It won't matter. Because guess what? They will have no power. The World Health Organization will be able to deem to shut this bitch down whenever they want to. Where y'all at? Where the hell is y'all at? They about to kill our ass. Where is y'all at?
She ain't lying, for real. There is, and I looked it up. Don't Google it, because you might find documents and things that don't necessarily tell you the truth or coincide with what it exactly is going on. But if you go on other means of search engines, you can find it. So, of course, right here, we've got a document, Global Government Alert. Threat to national sovereignty set to go down May 22nd through 28th at WHO World Health Assembly. The World Health Organization is attempting a quote-unquote power grab, quietly setting up a single globalized response to all future health emergencies. And that's big, as reportedly previously reported at leohomehaman.com. The deep state predators in U.S. and Western governments have decided the world needs a centralized pandemic response controlled and run by the United Nations World Health Organization via an international treaty. According to the World Health Organization's website, on March 31st, 2021, 25 world leaders announced an urgent call for an international pandemic treaty, stating that such a treaty is needed to orchestrate a single globalized response to pandemics. These, quote-unquote, 25 heads of government and international leaders have come together in a joint call to form the treaty. Now, this is huge, y'all. Don't forget that Yuval Noah Harari, the chief advisor to Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, has stated that globalist elites will use crises to bring about world government. Catastrophe opens the door to massive changes that people would otherwise never accept. A UN report from May 2021 called for more powers for the WHO, stating that, quote unquote, in its current form, the World Health Organization does not possess such powers to move on with the treaty, who therefore needs to be empowered financially and politically. This is not good, y'all. Whatever we think happened in Wuhan in 2020, the World Health Organization seems to be of the mindset that none of what came afterwards would have happened if they had only been given the power to unilaterally declare an emergency and override the Chinese opposition. We're saying it's an emergency. We're going to lock everybody down. We're stepping in. They want to grab power. They're changing Article 12, Section 2 of the International Health Regulations, and it effectively wipes out 192 nations' sovereignty to decide whether or not they allow an international organization to step in. It is important to note that the International Pandemic Treaty will be far more expansive in its scope than these amendments, but these amendments are more urgent because they will be voted on next month. And no U.S. politician is talking about this, nor is any mainstream media outlet reporting on it. The international health regulations would be legally binding and supersede the United States Constitution. The United States has proposed amendments to legally binding international health regulations that would be voted upon at the next World Health Assembly, which just happened. Yes, there's an official document. You can click there for it. These proposed amendments will cede additional sovereignty, control, and legal authority over to the World Health Organization. These amendments will not require approval by 2/3 of the United States Senate. If they are approved as submitted by the United States, by a simple majority of the 194 member countries of the World Health Assembly countries. These amendments would enter into force as international law just 6 months later, which would be November. The details of this are not crystal clear. It is not known if the amendments will be voted upon individually or as a complete package. Y'all, there's a lot here, and this isn't even the only. Look at this one. Globalist solution to pandemic. A new treaty that would essentially create a world government. And this one here, May 22nd, the WHO plans to strip 194 nations and U.S. of sovereignty. This is real shit, y'all. The implications of this essentially will just strip us of power. The United States Constitution will be null and void, essentially. We won't have any rights when it comes to
coming off the
health.
back of the COVID-19 pandemic. The World Health Organization is proposing a new pandemic treaty they are hoping will be accepted by enough member countries to become a reality by 2024. According to Dr. Tedros, the World Health Organization director, the COVID-19 pandemic has shone a light on the many flaws in the global system to protect people from pandemics. The most vulnerable people going without vaccines, health workers without needed equipment to perform their life-saving work, and me-first approaches that stymie the global solidarity needed to deal with a global threat. And the proposed pandemic treaty would aim to solve these issues. But when taking a deeper look at the treaty itself, there are a number of concerning things people of the world might want to consider before heading down this path. Here to break this down with me is Shabnam Palesa Mohammed, a member of the steering committee for the World Council for Health. All right, welcome, Shabnam. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about what the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty is?
So the World Health Organization intended or proposed pandemic treaty, as we understand it from the little bits of information coming out from the establishment, essentially gives the WHO an inordinate amount of power to make decisions in sovereign countries as to how people live and how they deal with pandemics, from lockdowns to mandates over treatments, and to really what people have started to consider a one-size-fits-all approach, which to date has actually not worked. And so this would be a direct threat on the sovereignty of a country to make decisions for itself. It's unnecessary, it's expensive, it's going to cost countries millions to participate in the treaty process, as well as really erode the foundations of democracy in each country, many of whom have actually not even heard about this proposed pandemic treaty that the WHO intends to impose on member states around the world.
And when are they looking at starting up this pandemic treaty?
So they've started the process last year with discussions. They formed an intergovernmental negotiating body, and they've now formed a working group to decide how this process will work in terms of this treaty and getting the buy-in of the various member states, many of whom have already signed up to the commentary that was released. And of course, again, most countries don't know about this, but it certainly does present a very serious challenge to sovereignty. And I believe that they're going to, well, they intend to confirm the treaty at the World Health Assembly in 2024. And the reason why I say I believe, and I don't say so with certainty, is because we know that circumstances, whether true or not, could be used to expedite this treaty and say, well, it's urgent for us to actually put it into place now in 2022, again, without public participation, which in our view as the World Council for Health certainly means that it is undemocratic, it is unconstitutional, and therefore makes the treaty invalid and unlawful.
Right. Yeah. And so I think one of the questions here is like, there's about 194 countries that are, part of the World Health Organization as member states. How is it that the World Health Organization in this case would make sure that whatever they set forth would end up being, I guess, by law, all of the 194 countries would have to participate?
Right. So they would need to go through a voting process at the World Health Assembly, and by a 2/3 majority can pass this treaty. But the other part that's very important to remember in terms of conventions and treaties signed by bodies like the WHO, which of course are not democratically elected, is that if a country signs up for the treaty and then decides it does not want to subscribe to this treaty, or it does not want to enforce that aspect of the treaty, sanctions can be imposed against that country, which of course has massive socio-political and socio-economic implications for any country that decides we actually don't subscribe to this anymore. We've seen what the WHO has done historically in terms of its many failures. Firstly, in terms of its track record, in terms of corruption, one can easily research the WHO and its history of corruption. And of course, Joe, that is intrinsically linked to conflict of interest. So if you've, of course, read the first open letter by the World Council for Health on the WHO's proposed pandemic treaty, you will see that we outlined the following: that the WHO cannot be allowed to control the World Health Agenda nor enforce biosurveillance while it receives funding from public sources belonging to the people. It is caught in a perpetual conflict of interest because it also receives substantial funding from private interests that use their contributions to influence and profit from WHO decisions and mandates. And for example, of course, the Gates Foundation and the Gates-funded Gavi Vaccine Promotion Alliance contribute over $1 billion a year. So we're not dealing with a democratic institution or body that serves the needs of its people. And while this may be one treaty of many, Joe, that need to be challenged, it certainly is a way to bring people together to realize that the WHO should not be making any decisions about the world's health in future.
Yeah, I mean, it's the implications seem rather large here, and I wonder, this is a pandemic treaty, but is it possible that it could extend into other health measures as well, or is it only if some form of viral pandemic were to take place?
Well, while it does say it's pandemic preparedness and response, given the WHO's constitution, and I would like to read certain clauses from it to you, one understands the inordinate amount of power that this institution has and how this treaty can be used using the WHO's constitution to essentially make decisions about any aspects of health. If you look at Article 2 of the WHO's constitution, in order to achieve its objective, the functions of the organization shall be to act as the directing and coordinating authority on international health work, to propose conventions, agreements, regulations, make recommendations, to establish and revise as necessary nomenclature of diseases, so the naming of diseases, whether or not experts concur that this is in fact a new disease, whether it's a pandemic or not. And we know the WHO has in fact changed the definition of what a pandemic actually is. Causes of death, again, a very controversial topic as to, even with regards to COVID-19, as to what was the actual cause of death, and the inflation of figures, public health practices, standardizing diagnostic procedures such as highly problematic PCR, to develop and establish international standards with regards to food, biological and pharmaceutical and similar products. And clause V of Article 2, Joe, to generally take any necessary action to attain the objectives of the organization. So this is far-reaching power. And while it may seem one treaty and may seem a good idea in theory to those who don't understand the implications, for us at the World Council for Health, it clearly represents a power grab, consolidating the undemocratic mandate and lockdowns, etc., that have been forced upon people, sort of conditioning them to accept a new normal, and paves the way for these digital vaccine IDs, no access to services, places, and products, and constant biosurveillance.
Mm-hmm. It becomes interesting because the concept of almost a one world health governing body, it's not a concept that is all that far-fetched when you consider what this treaty is, although that concept is often stated as conspiratorial. Is it too far-fetched to say this is a bit of a one world sort of health policy?
Not at all, because the Director General of the WHO, Tedros, who is not in fact a medical doctor, himself speaks in that language of one health, one world, one WHO. In other words, one size fits all. What we say goes. But when people are harmed through their policies, then of course they have no accountability because of diplomatic immunity that the WHO has given itself. And so this is not an organization that countries should be entrusting their healthcare to. As the World Council for Health, we believe in a community-focused, ethical, decentralized way of approaching health, which leaves power in the hands of the people to make the decisions that are best for them. And we know that people have innate wisdom. They have an ability to make sense of things, which is why our partners from Australia to Zimbabwe are standing against this proposed pandemic treaty, and have decided that we will, in fact, as the World Health Organization, as our partners and a growing number of public, campaign against this treaty and ensure that it actually does not see the light of day.
If people aren't in agreement and they see issue with this pandemic treaty, what can they do?
Well, I think most importantly is to educate ourselves about what the treaty would say. Look at the WHO Constitution, in particular Article 2, 19, 20, 21, and 22, to familiarize yourself also with the Syracuse Principle, which protects natural law and the rights of the person, of the living man, woman, and child, more so than these conventions, which serve the interest essentially of multinational corporations and profit over people, as opposed to people over profit. So it starts with the education, and that's what we call for in our open letter, which can be found on our website, worldcouncilforhealth.org. So there's 3 calls to action in that first letter. A, to raise awareness about the implications of the proposed global pandemic treaty, which one can only do if one has the education and access to resources. B, to call for national campaigns that protect natural law and democratic constitutions. And C, to join credible civil society organizations such as the World Council for Health. And within that open letter, Joe, on the website, you will see various links to, for example, the Syracuse Principle, as well as the town hall that the World Council for Health held last year, in fact, when we started to see the direction in which this was going, while the world was very much distracted by the waves and whatever latest distraction was going on in the establishment media. But essentially, it comes down to realizing, is this the way we want to live for the rest of our lives? Is this the path we're going to choose? What are the implications for us, our children, our children's children? Can we be refused the right to food because we do not want to live in an undemocratic, fascist way? And that could easily happen if you don't have a digital vaccine certificate.
Yep.
The WHO could say, well, you've signed this treaty as a country, so you as the president, you're now obligated to put the following measures in place. And this would, of course, lead to massive unemployment and poverty and general, a state of the opposite of well-being, which is what we all truly want. So therefore, mobilizing around this issue is essential to take back our power.
Yeah, is it fair to say that it's almost like one path is a path of fear and surveillance and the illusion of safety, and one is almost this philosophical reassessing of what type of life do we want to live? What does it mean to live? Do you think all of these questions play into this decision here?
Absolutely. One has to philosophically look at what is the meaning of life? What has our life meant over the last 2 years? Certainly, this chapter has woken more people up to the realities of who we are and what we face, who is really in control of the world, and how we can change that. But it's both, the alternative is both philosophical as well as practical. But I really do think the last 2 years have been a massive awakening again. And I do see people not taking this pandemic treaty lying down and deciding to say, enough is enough. We will make decisions about our lives. You've had your time. We don't believe in you anymore. And if you leave us alone in peace, we can move on. We'll take it from here.
Mm-hmm. That's well said, and I totally agree with the sense that there's a lot of people that are questioning very, very deeply the institutions, and I think this is why conversations like this are important, and the work that the World Council for Health is doing is incredibly important. I want to say thank you, Shabnam, for coming on and sharing this with us. I think there's a lot for people to consider here.
Absolutely.
So that interview is a lot to take in, but if you Go ahead and check out the articles I posted in the comments. It will all make more sense to you, but I do want to recap real quick by reading this off real quick. Key issues to understand. On January 18th of 2022, the United States Department of Health and Human Services proposed amendments to the IHR. These amendments give control over the declaration of a public health emergency in any member state to the WHO Director General, even over the objection of the member state, meaning the United States will be overridden by the WHO. The Director General communicated the text of the proposed amendments on January the 20th, 2022 via a circular letter to state parties. The proposed IHR amendments also cede control to regional directors who are given the authority to declare a public health emergency of regional concern. Moreover, the proposed amendments allow the Director General to ring an international alarm bell by unilaterally issuing an intermediate public health alert. Properly understood, the proposed IHR amendments are directed towards establishing a globalist architecture of worldwide health surveillance, reporting, and management. Consistent with a top-down view of governance, the public will not have opportunities to provide input or criticism concerning the amendments. This, of course, is a direct violation of the basic tenets of democracy and can be compared to the separate new pandemic treaty. People, I truly urge you to go search on search engines, not Google, and do the research for yourself. Wake up, pay attention. The distractions that mainstream media will sensationalize and distract you with is propaganda. Please just pay attention. I know that a lot of people are hurting and are in pain, and that's valid, but just keep your eyes open because they're always distracting us. Well, people, we're going to get out of here. Make sure you meditate on your path, celebrate your being, liberate your spirit, and educate yourself. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, follow to all of the links at the bottom of the screen, and donate. Our Venmo and Cash App is at the bottom of the screen. If you need our PayPal, reach out. We love you. Have a good one.